VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at vcyamerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
And friends, thank you for joining us on Crosstalk, coming your way from VCY America. Just before we introduce our guest and topic today, just to follow up to yesterday's program, we were dealing with this storming of this church, a city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, this past Sunday, and arrests have begun, and began with the announcements here coming from Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, arresting Nikema Levy Armstrong. I guess that was the first one, and more to follow. Likely on our news roundup, we'll have more information on this on tomorrow's broadcast. Well, it was 53 years ago today that the U.S. Supreme Court announced their decision in a case known as Roe v. Wade. 49 and 1/2 years after that, the nation's highest court overturned Roe with the Dobbs decision, which has turned this matter back to the states. And according to a number of abortions.com, nearly 67.5 million abortions have taken place in the United States since Roe. And sadly, the carnage continues. Even though a number of states have taken legislative action in opposition to abortion, and even though Planned Parenthood has closed many abortion centers around the country, abortions are increasing as the abortion pill is flourishing. The abortion pill has proved to be dangerous for both moms and babies. And while those promoting the abortion pill insist that it is safe, researchers with the Ethics and Public Policy Center report that abortion pill is 22 times more dangerous than Planned Parenthood says. Well, joining us to discuss this matter today, we welcome Victor Nieves. He is president of the Life Issues Institute, founded in 1991 to serve the educational needs of the pro-life movement. Victor has had a passion for pro-life at a young age while working in a state house and Senate campaigns in Missouri. He has a degree in political science with a dual focus on American government and constitutional law. And Victor, welcome here to Crosstalk.
Jim, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to join you.
And first time on now as president of Life Issues Institute. The baton has been passed from Brad Mattis to yourself, and congratulations on the position.
Thank you, sir. And there's a lot of work to be done, a lot of good work, coming in, like I always say, kind of off the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
But God has blessed us in many ways, but there are many more hills to take. And Lord willing, we're going to take them.
Indeed. Well, we're going to specifically address the devastating nature of the abortion pill today. But even before we get to that, Victor, I'd like to get your thoughts on this 53rd anniversary of Roe. It's a decision that, even though it's been reversed, has yielded death, it's yielded destruction, irreversible consequences. What are your thoughts on this day?
Well, Jim, Roe v. Wade, I come to this from something of a unique perspective, being a younger guy. I'm 26. It almost seems weird to say it, because to me that sounds, I don't know how that happened, time flies. But you look at my generation, roughly 1/3 of my would-have-been friends, colleagues, coworkers were killed. And that was because of Roe v. Wade. Since 1973, as you mentioned, there's estimates well in excess of 60 million unborn babies have been killed. About 1/3 of Gen Z, 1/3 of my generation, was brutally and barbarically killed in the practice of abortion. And for so many of them, it was done with the approval of the law. Talk about an injustice. And so to me, it's such a blessing to have witnessed the end of Roe v. Wade with the Dobbs decision. And it's an encouragement in many ways. Some people didn't think we would ever get it done. And I understand why. Because it was such a monumental, such a Herculean task. People devoted literally 40, 50 years of their lives working tirelessly to get this done. And in the back of some people's heads, it was almost too good to be true. It almost felt like the day would never actually come. But thank God, genuinely thank God, as we ought to do, Roe v. Wade is gone. Now, it kicked the anthill in a certain way. Planned Parenthood raised a lot of money, and they diversified. There's one thing that we have to admit. I'm not one that enjoys giving flowers to the abortion industry, but flowers where flowers are due, our adversary is very crafty. They are a lot of things, but they're not dumb, and they're very good at what they do. Unfortunately, much to my dismay, they're pretty good at what they do, and so they diversified instantly. It was clear that they had a very well-thought-through strategy. For the second that Roe went away, they immediately went to the states. We're seeing, there's a battle in all 50 states. They're trying to get these radical abortion until birth, or maybe in some cases even after, pieces of legislation, even enshrined into constitutional law in some of these states, which unfortunately they've had a degree of success in thus far. But, I don't want to think about all of the bad sides of what we've seen recently. I want to remain encouraged. I want to remain eternally optimistic, because I know, for one thing, that all things are possible through Christ, and there is no hill that we can't take. There is no victory that is too big, certainly not for my God. There is nothing that he cannot do. There is nothing that we cannot achieve that's a just goal. And so, we did that. We got rid of Roe. And that's not to say that we should rest on our laurels or we should take that for granted, but we should keep that in the back of our mind as we look forward. Jim, we're going to talk about this dangerous chemical abortion pill, and it can be easy once again to kind of slip into that feeling of, are we ever really going to get rid of this? Are we ever really going to be able to take that one and take it down? I'm here to tell you, yes, absolutely we can, and I'll say absolutely we will. It's not a matter of if, it's really only a matter of when. But as you mentioned, it's a huge deal. This chemical abortion pill, it's very dangerous, it's very deadly. I'm sure we'll get into that more later on. But, 65 million is enough. We have to stop this. What's happening in our country is abhorrent. Abortion, frankly speaking, is murder. We need to remember that. We need to behave accordingly, because this is the greatest civil rights injustice of our time. And, Jim, again, like I say, it hits home for me in a lot of ways. One of those ways is that 1/3 of my generation was killed by abortion.
That is so sad to hear, and it just, brings us back to reality when we think of 1/3 of the Gen Z generation. And you mentioned, the Dobbs decision, it overturned Roe v. Wade. That was June 24th, 2022. And yet, as that you mentioned about that second wave of Planned Parenthood attacks, really state by state by state, we just want to point out that perhaps one of the most recent decisions just coming out from the state of Virginia, that now with a new elected Democratic governor and a Democratic controlled now state and assembly, House and Senate seats there, that this coming November, abortion is on the ballot, that Virginia is looking at bringing about abortions up to birth, and that's going to be on the ballot this November 2026 in the state of Virginia.
Yeah, and it's terrifying. Jim, I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to read for the listener just verbatim here from Section 11A. It's easy sometimes in the world of cultural discussions, political discussions, whatever it might be, we can fall into hyperbole, and sometimes people will hear us say, this is abortion until birth. And they'll think, is that for real? And obviously, nobody's going to assume that you wouldn't be telling them the full truth. But this happens in politics. People start to think, and the other side of the aisle will give their very dishonest perspective of what it is. Well, I want to read to you just a little bit here. Section 11A, and anybody can look this up. It's publicly available. They write, in this constitutional amendment, should it pass, they say, notwithstanding the above, the Commonwealth of Virginia may regulate the provision of what they call, quote-unquote, abortion care in the third trimester, provided that in no circumstance shall the Commonwealth prohibit an abortion, one, that is in the professional judgment of a physician medically indicated to protect the life or physical, or, here's the big caveat, or mental health of the pregnant individual. So this is not for the life of the woman. We're talking about, quite literally, abortion until birth. You're passing the buck to the so-called physician. So the abortion provider, the one who is actually doing the abortion, the abortionist, is the one who makes the final judgment call and says, well, this abortion is necessary and it's okay under state law for the mental health of the pregnant individual.
Oh, my.
For the mental health of the pregnant individual, well, who defines what is a qualifying piece of mental health? The abortionist. So perhaps it could be as egregious as somebody comes in and says, well, being pregnant makes me sad. And then the Planned Parenthood abortionist says, oh, well, worry not. You can have an abortion until the moment of birth here in Virginia because of this piece of legislation. This is what we're talking about. Again, like I say, they like to be crafty. They typically will try and shroud what their real intentions are. They'll try and put it in some sort of confusing language or put it at the bottom of something, how they do, the fine text. But when you read what they themselves write, they have clearly paved the road for abortion until the moment of birth. That's what we're dealing with here.
Friends, you're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America. Victor Nieves is our guest today, president of the Life Issues Institute. And Victor, I just thank the Lord for the number of abortion centers that are closing the doors, but it's so alarming at the same time to see the number of abortions that are taking place, largely due to the abortion pill. And I'm looking at a headline right now from the Washington Times of January 19th, 2026. Here's a headline: fueled by pills, the number of abortions nationwide keep rising after Supreme Court's Dobbs decision. So tell us about this pill and then also how it works.
Yeah, well, so what people need to know is that it is a two-part pill. So the first part is mifepristone. The second part is mifeprex. There's a couple generic names, but you just need to know really it's a two-part protocol. The first part essentially starves the baby. It is a endocrine disruptor. It cuts off progesterone to the baby, which kills the baby. The second part in the pill essentially forces premature delivery of what is now, unfortunately, a dead baby. Oftentimes, this is happening with virtually no medical oversight. So women are handed these very dangerous pills. As you mentioned, research shows about 1 in 10 women who take this pill will have serious adverse complications. We're talking things like sepsis. We're talking hemorrhaging, we're talking profuse bleeding, and this is happening now in their bathroom. This is happening in many cases in a hotel bathroom because they're just dispatched. Planned Parenthood or, as we're seeing now, some of these overseas providers will send them these pills, and this is happening, Jim, in all 50 states. I'm in Texas, and so here a lot of people believe that abortion is illegal, that it can't happen. Well, what I'm telling you is very unfortunate, but it's the truth. They're simply putting the pills in the mail. A woman no longer has to go to a physical brick-and-mortar building. She doesn't have to schedule an appointment. She just has to go online, and she just has to click order, and she has to get it. A lot of times you're talking telehealth with basically nothing. There's a lot of layers to that. There's a lot of really big medical concerns with it. For example, if a woman unknowingly has an ectopic pregnancy, that can kill her. But they don't have to do any kind of screening. There doesn't have to be any meaningful oversight from a doctor here. But this is killing babies. I mean, every time people try to frame this as though the abortion pill is safe. Sometimes they'll say it's safer than Tylenol or some over-the-counter medication. Well, those don't kill someone. The successful application of Tylenol does not kill someone. Every successful application from, their perspective, every successful application of this chemical concoction kills someone. It kills an innocent unborn baby. And so, there's a lot of information that's been coming out about this pill. Everything that comes out is more concerning. We're finding out just how dangerous this is. One of the big things, and hopefully we can unpack this quite a bit today, is that these pills, again, are being shipped from overseas. What the listener needs to know is there are only 3. Now, there should be 0. If we're dealing in the world of what ought to be, there should be none of them, okay? But as of right now, as it currently stands, the FDA has only approved 3 abortion pill distributors. Many of the drugs coming into this country are not from a certified pharmacy or a certified sponsor.
Tell you what, let's pick up with that right after the break. Victor Nieves with us today on Crosstalk. And friends, alarming information. And today we're exposing the devastating harm of the abortion pill. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY America Network.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, scientist with the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, why do scientific dating methods seem to indicate that the world has a vast age?
Chris, in most dating efforts, you must observe a present-day process and the state of that system affected by that process. Then you conclude how long it would take for that process to produce the present state. The main assumption is that the rate of that process has never been much different than it is now. For instance, we might date the Mississippi Delta by estimating how long it would take for the Mississippi River to bring enough silt down to build up that huge delta. But if a great flood had occurred in the past, the rate of delta buildup might have been much different than today. If we include Noah's flood in our thinking, then most dating techniques actually give a date far too young to have allowed for evolution to occur. They're consistent with the biblical doctrine of the young earth, the one we read about back in Genesis.
For more information, visit our website at icr.org.
This is Crosstalk coming your way from the VCY American Network. Victor Nieves with us today, president of the Life Issues Institute. He has just recently had the baton passed to him from Brad Mattis, who had been with us many times here on the broadcast, and that got passed to Brad from Dr. Jack Wilkie, and certainly having a great educational impact across the nation. We're talking today about the devastating harm of the abortion pill. And Victor, just as we're going to the break, you were telling us about the so many of these pills are being shipped from overseas into the United States, that there are only 3 that are actually approved, here from the FDA here in the States, but they're coming from so many sources. Go ahead and pick up where you left off.
Yeah, so just resuming this, it's such a dangerous problem right now. We have these chemical abortion pills that are being mailed to all 50 states. Again, that has to be restated and restated again. These pills, even if you're in a pro-life state, even if you are in a state like Texas where abortion is illegal, it doesn't matter. They are still shipping these dangerous, these deadly drugs into your state. So it's happening in all 50 states. They really don't require many of these organizations and these groups that are shipping these pills. They don't even require a prescription. Our friends over at Charlotte Lozier Institute, they recently released a really important, a very eye-opening report. They studied this, and they looked at, for one, just the danger of it, because, there's an angle here, Jim, that some people don't often think about. But when you no longer have to go to a brick-and-mortar facility, when you no longer have to have any meaningful medical oversight of this, of course, it's a tremendous danger to the unborn baby. Of course, it puts, the mother in harm's way in the most obvious ways. But there's also what I'm going to be generous here and say might be an unintended consequence of this ridiculous distribution. Think about the abusers. Think about the human traffickers who can then go online with no real medical oversight. They don't even need a prescription in a lot of cases to get these pills. They get them, mailed in from whether it's India, China, Pakistan, Mexico. They come right into the United States, right to their doorstep. And then those abusers can take these pills and they can force women into having abortions. We've seen countless stories of mothers who wanted to keep their child, but maybe it was an abusive husband, an abusive ex, there was some sort of infidelity, and there was someone who wanted to cover things up. And so they'll go online and they'll acquire these drugs, again, under false pretenses, but it's very, very easy to do. And then they, force a woman to take these pills. And so there's a serious issue here, and really it requires federal enforcement. Right now, today, like I mentioned, there are only 3 official approved abortion pill providers. When somebody wants to mail them into the United States, it's supposed to only be able to come from 3 of these specific companies. Right now, many of these drugs that are coming in, like I said, are coming from whether it's Pakistan or India or Mexico, and they don't care. They're bypassing it. And so what we need is, we do need Customs and Border Patrol. We do need to have, because these are coming in many cases straight through ports of entry.
Yeah.
We need to have these shipments stopped.
And I'm thinking about these drug boats that we have, bombed and smashed coming from Venezuela here into the U.S. And here we are, stopping this devastation from coming into the country. But what are we doing to stop the flow of these pills coming into our country, again, that are taking human lives, taking American lives?
Yeah, and what everybody needs to understand is we see what's happening with the fentanyl crisis in this country, taking, just over the last couple of years, hundreds of thousands of lives. The fentanyl crisis can't be overstated. It's a very big problem. Well, fentanyl obviously is an issue. Again, I go back to the fact that every single time one of these pills is successful, it's killing an innocent child. People have to keep in mind the severity of this drug. Sometimes I think the abortion industry can be particularly successful with some of their messaging, and because they'll have an individual in a white coat with a stethoscope around their neck, and they'll do these, ad pieces about how it's just like Tylenol or it's very safe. We almost get lulled into this feeling like it's not that big of a deal. It's just a pill, after all. It's just a harmless pill. This isn't a surgical procedure. They just give it to the woman, or perhaps they put it in the mail, and everything just goes away. Well, the thing that happens is the killing of an innocent child, and again, we go back to the fact that about 1 in 10 women who are taking these pills are suffering very serious consequences.
And ending up in emergency rooms across the country.
Yeah, with hemorrhaging, sepsis, profuse bleeding. And, one of the things, Jim, that we know this anecdotally from having countless conversations with women who have experienced it firsthand, with medical providers, real medical providers, not the folks at abortion facilities, but real medical providers. We know this, that those who are distributing these pills, think about how terrifying this is. Those who are distributing these pills are often telling women that if you have any kind of a complication, if you have profuse bleeding, if you think you might be developing an infection, whatever it might would be, if you need to go to the emergency room, do not tell them that you took this pill.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you have women going to the emergency room and they're reporting over and over and over that they took this pill, instead what they're telling them is just say you don't know why, but you're experiencing a miscarriage. So now you have the abortionist telling these women to go and provide those who are trying to save their lives. Again, they're going to the emergency room with a very serious complication, which happens to about 1 in 10 women.
Yeah.
And they're going into these emergency rooms and they're providing the attending physicians incorrect information.
Yeah.
They're not telling them the truth about why they're actually there. And, the abortion industry, they try to plant lies. And they try to, concern these women and pretend like the women are going to have all kinds of, arrests and whatever it might be. That's not going to happen in any state. There's not a single state right now today where a woman would in any way be prosecuted for a chemical abortion. But they'll try and tell women all of these things, so then they go in under false pretenses. Think about the issues that we're going to see there.
Yeah, indeed. And, Victor, I also think of the traumatization that is there as well. I just read recently an account of someone who took the abortion pill and aborted her baby at 17 weeks. I mean, who is to regulate when the woman takes this pill? But she took it at 17 weeks. The child was fully formed, even recognizable as a boy or a girl, and in this case it was a boy. This woman suffered trauma like she will never forget.
Well, and if that woman, and that's a heartbreaking story, unfortunately we've heard so many that are just like that. Women taking these pills well beyond what the FDA guidelines are, well beyond what they're supposed to. But it harkens back to one of the issues with these pills is when they're distributed, you don't know if they're taken. You don't know when they're taken.
Right.
Somebody could take these pills at 20 weeks, and then you're dramatically increasing the risk of sepsis. You're dramatically increasing the risk of, fetal remains staying in the woman. But the other aspect of this is, Jim, from just a human perspective, if that woman who took that pill, if she went back to the abortion industry and she described her experience to them, they wouldn't care at all. They already cashed her check. They already made the money. That was all that they were ever there to do. They don't care about her. Now, if she goes into a pregnancy resource center, if she goes and gets help from the pro-life community, they're going to be there for her. They're going to love on her. Oftentimes, they'll share the gospel with her and the redemptive power of Christ. But if she goes to them, the very ones who provided this pill to her, oftentimes lying and under false pretenses and etc., they're not going to do anything for her.
Yeah. I read yet another account this very month, a woman in Kentucky she's been charged now with first-degree fetal homicide after allegedly using the abortion pills ordered online to end the life of her developed unborn son, buried the body in a shallow grave on their property. Victor, it's horrendous what is taking place here. And right now, the last I read, they were trying to do tests to get the gestation age of the child. But here is burying in one's backyard?
Yeah. And Jim, it's one of those problems that, again, the abortion industry does not tell women. When they hand you those pills, they tell you that it's just going to be a little bit of bleeding. It might be moderately discomforting. But they don't explain that these women are going to go into labor, essentially, and they're going to deliver a dead baby, and they're going to have to see their baby. And so often...
And some are told, just don't look, just flush it down the toilet.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So a lot of times, it's in a bathroom, and this is one thing that those of us who travel often may not like to think about, but a lot of times this is happening in hotel bathrooms. We've had plenty of testimony from those who work in the hotel industry, who are custodians, who are finding, think about how horrifying this is. They're finding the remains of these babies in the toilet.
Oh, my.
And when women deliver these babies, like you said, oftentimes they're very fully formed. You can tell, you can see that there is so much development at such an early gestation, and women aren't prepared for that at all. And so, yes, of course, we're going to see a lot of people who are traumatized by this, and understandably so. I can't imagine the pain of seeing that. I do want to mention really quickly, it can't be said enough times as we discuss chemical abortion, I do want to quickly plug abortion pill reversal. Mm-hmm. So for anybody who may have taken the first pill in the two-part protocol, there's what's called abortion pill reversal, the Abortion Pill Reversal Network. They do a fantastic job. It's supplemental progesterone. Progesterone has been used in pregnancy care for about 50 years. It's very safe. It's literally just a hormone, a necessary hormone for pregnancy to maintain the life of the child. With supplemental progesterone, abortion pill reversal, we're seeing a pretty tremendous success rate of women who are able to change their mind, and they are able to save their babies. So perhaps if you know a loved one, or maybe there's someone at their church who's made a terrible mistake and now wants to change their mind and save their baby, I always like to point people to abortion pill reversal because it is saving lives. We've had in excess of 7,000 babies they've actually had their lives saved through abortion pill reversal.
How soon does that need to be taken after the first abortion pill has been given?
Well, the sooner the better. That's the trick with abortion pill reversal. It's one of the reasons that we want to have it very widely accessible. You know, it's interesting, as you see, there are plenty of pregnancy resource centers who have actually faced a lot of litigation, a lot of pressure from local governments to try and shut them down because they're offering abortion pill reversal. They're offering women the chance. It's completely safe. There's no devil's advocate to be made. There's no counter argument against the providing of supplemental progesterone. But we're seeing that the abortion industry wants to strip that option away. They want to make sure that you are successful in aborting your child, which is just a really demented thought. But the sooner the better. The sooner the better. You don't have a tremendous amount of time. Inside 48 hours, you really want to be as quick as you possibly can, though.
Again, that's abortion pill reversal. How can that be obtained?
Well, you can go to the Abortion Pill Reversal Network, and as the name would imply, there's a network of PRCs. There's a network of pro-life doctors. You get in touch with them, and they will do everything in their power to get that pill to you, to get progesterone, to you as quickly as they possibly can.
Again, it's called Abortion Pill Reversal. We're talking with Victor Nieves today from Life Issues Institute. And Victor, I know that, and we're just half a minute before the break, we'll just introduce this now, but I believe the Attorney General of Louisiana is asking a federal court to block this mail-order abortion drug rule that came under the Biden administration. Any idea what's happening with that?
Yeah, it's actually a big effort right now to try and block it. There's a couple of states that have this in the works. Of course, Louisiana is in the process of it. We're prayerfully optimistic on it, although we do understand, the current legal landscape is pretty complicated when it comes to this. And so that's certainly a point of interest for the entire pro-life movement right now. We're praying for that effort. I wonder how successful it will be, but we are praying for that.
Indeed. Friends, we'll take a quick break and some more questions for our guest today. Victor Nieves, who is the president of Life Issues Institute, will also be opening phone lines a little bit later in the program, giving you opportunity to weigh in on this issue as well. We'll be back in 1 minute. You're listening to Crosstalk.
Is it okay to abort a baby? People give many reasons why abortion is an acceptable choice. The inconvenience of pregnancy, infant disabilities. It's the woman's body. It's not a baby. This is a result of rape or incest. Incompetence of parents. And she's not ready to be a parent. In the DVD, 7 Reasons, Ray Comfort addresses these 7 questions, reasoning with college students and people on the street about whether such objections are justified. You will see those who are ardently pro-choice change their mind in moments. This powerful 42-minute DVD is available for a donation of $9 or 5 copies for a donation of $22 when you call VCY 1-800-729-9829. Ask for the DVD 7 Reasons.
You're listening to Crosstalk on VCY America, and friends, today, the 53rd anniversary of the Supreme Court decision known as Roe v. Wade. And then just 4.5 years ago, we saw, it was 49 and a half years ago, I should say, that we saw the Dobbs decision overturning Roe. Now almost 4 years this year. It'll be the 4 years this June since that decision came out, but putting this issue back to the states. And there are states that are standing for life, and there are others that are standing for death. I mean, as we mentioned, the most recent here with Virginia putting this on the ballot this coming November to allow abortions up to birth, and it's going to be there as a ballot question for people in Virginia to make decisions. And meanwhile, across the country, whether your state is red or blue, or pro-life or not, it is such that it is the mail-order abortion pills are running rampant through our mail system even today. And certainly the great harm this is being caused, and the little-known fact getting out about the abortion pill reversal that needs to be widely known. But at the same time, Victor, as we pointed out, there are those who are trying to sue crisis pregnancy centers, pregnancy resource centers from making this available, saying it's just a hoax. It really does not work. It's just there's no science behind it, and trying to stop that from taking place. It's just beyond me the lengths that they were going to promote death.
Well, and that's one thing, Jim. Again, we speak about the abortion industry, and I never like to speak fondly about them, but there is something that we can learn from them. Not to say that we're not also pretty good at this, but I tell you what, they are resilient. The abortion industry is crafty. They are resilient. It's like they don't sleep, and they will fight tooth and nail for some pretty demented things, but they will fight tooth and nail with every fiber of their being. And so we have to keep that in mind. As we strive personally to fight for the unborn, we can't really take days off. We can't let off the gas pedal, because the second that we do, if you think of it in the terms of running a race, if we slow down, they won't. They will continue on, and they've proven time and time again that they are opportunistic, if nothing else, and they will just continue to go and go and go. And so we have to have that same resolve. We have to meet them on the battlefield, metaphorically, and we have to win.
You mentioned about 1 in 10 having to go to emergency room and the complications that are happening with those using the abortion pill. And happen to think about another pain too, Victor, and that's the emotional pain. And I'd like you to address this too, because, that they know about when that child would be born. So every birthday remembered, every Mother's Day, every Christmas, the child that wasn't. This emotional pain stays with them through their life as well.
Yes, it does, and it's truly heartbreaking to have those conversations. Now, thankfully, there are many who have found healing in Christ, which is really the only way that you're going to. That is such a traumatic thing, and it's such a great evil. The act itself is such a tremendous evil, and so absolutely you have to go to the cross with that. But we have spoken to so many women, and the stories that break my heart perhaps the most are the women who, under different circumstances, never in a million years would they have aborted their child. Never in a million years would they have even considered it. But we're human beings, right? All of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And that doesn't mean that we don't get justice for the unborn. Certainly not. But we are all susceptible in our lowest moments. Sometimes it's the voice of the enemy that comes to you when you are at your wit's end. You have nothing left in the tank. And, you need to turn to Christ in those moments. But from time to time, we hear the stories of the enemy has too much success in a particular moment. And so you have these women who, my goodness, they need help. They need care. They need love. They need people to come around them and speak life over them. But unfortunately, the way that the world would have it, they instead of walking through the doors of a pregnancy resource center, or instead of walking through the doors of a church, they unfortunately find themselves walking through the doors of a Planned Parenthood, or maybe visiting the website of some sort of an abortion pill provider. And in their weakest moment, when they're terrified, when they're afraid, when they don't know what to do, when they don't know who to turn to, the abortion industry, it's like the cartoons. They get cash They get the dollar signs in their eyes.
Yeah.
They see that woman as a profit margin. They see that woman as nothing more than a way for them to make money off of her. And they know just like we know. We're in the same arena every day. We know it, they know it. We see the same facts. We deal with the same information. They just, whether they interpret it different, whether they have whatever it might be, they know that they are devastating these women. They know that they will leave many of these women with lifelong scars and trauma, with guilt, with crippling anxiety, with all sorts of mental health issues, because they took that woman when she needed help, and she came to them for help because they advertise as though they will help you. And the woman goes to them for help. And they take her and they convince her to kill her child. They profit off of her and they kick her to the curb, never wanting to deal with her ever again unless she's coming back for another abortion.
Yeah.
Talk about sinister. Talk about that that lights a fire in my stomach when I hear those stories. And unfortunately, we have heard thousands of stories just like that of these women who come in at their lowest. Talk about how evil to take somebody at the lowest point in their life and to turn them into nothing more than a profit margin for the abortion industry.
Yeah. Friends, it's tragic, it's sad, and it's reality, what's happening right now here in our society today. And Victor, on the positive side, I understand that these pregnancy resource centers are just I saw Live Action last month. They were reporting that it's a 4-to-1 ratio, that there are more pregnancy resource centers, 4-to-1. They're outnumbering abortion facilities. And the point I want to make with this, though, that many of these pregnancy resource centers, they need those who claim to be pro-life to come alongside, support them financially, support them with diapers and formula and car seats and baby cribs and help, volunteer hours and clothing and all these items, whereby those who claim, saying I'm pro-life, to be active pro-life.
Yeah, we have to walk the walk. It's very easy, and I appreciate everybody who shares pro-life educational material. That is literally our bread and butter. I think that's what changes culture. But it's easy to say these things sometimes, but it's a whole other world to step foot into the arena.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole other thing when you're standing at the river and you got to get your feet wet. It's a whole other animal when you're about to walk outside and actually have to see it, have to deal with it, and one of the best ways to start you don't have to go straight to be a sidewalk counselor.
Right.
Though we love the sidewalk counselors. They're amazing. They're fantastic. One of the best places to start, like you said, go to your local PRC. Go and help them. They need it. I promise you they need it. You're not going to go. The odds are very slim that you're going to go to a pregnancy resource center and say, hey, I would like to help, and hear them say, no, we're good. We don't need your help today. We're fine. No. There is so much opportunity. There's so much that you can do. And by the way, people severely underestimate, not to go off on an inspirational, motivational speech here, but people really underestimate the impact that they can have. You, the listener, you can have a tremendous impact. Don't ever cut yourself short. Don't ever assume that you can't change the world around you. You might not be able to change the entire world overnight, but you can change the world around you. You can change your community. You can change your church. You can change your friend group. You have a sphere of influence. Don't underestimate the impact that you can have. And again, Jim, like you said, a great place to start. Walk into the doors of a PRC and offer to help.
Victor Nieves is with us. Victor, at Life Issues, you've got a number of resources to help individuals on this issue. I know you have guides and kits and information that can help people deal not only with this, but many other issues as well.
Yes, we do. And so I would always encourage people to go and make use of our massive catalog. I mean, we have about 5,000 pages of resources and information and tools, and you name it. If you need it, it is on there. And I tell you what, if you don't have it, shoot us an email, and I'll make sure that it is on there.
Lifeissues.org is a website, lifeissues.org. They just posted today a new tool in defense of life. You can check that out there as well. Lots of information available there. Lots of information about the abortion pill, including most recent studies on the abortion pill and highlighting the dangers of chemical abortion, significant studies, grim findings on the abortion pill, alarming trend of chemical abortion, how people are getting this without a prescription. how they are being used at 10 weeks, and then also the abortion pill reversal. They've got lots of information, lifeissues.org. Friends, I'd like to open our lines today. If you have a question you'd like to ask of Victor or a brief comment, our number is 800-733-9829. That's 1-800-733-9829. And friends, again, this abortion pill can be so easily obtained from anybody. From anybody. Men, yes, men are receiving this. Abusers are receiving those. Those who have committed sexual assault have access. And I understand that there's been very horrible things happening with men obtaining the abortion pill and either forcing it or using clandestine means, mixing it in with food or drink in order to kill the unwanted baby. Victor, it's horrendous what's taken place.
It is. And, this is an all-hands-on-deck situation, Jim. This is something where, when we study history, right, take yourself back to when you were in, fourth grade. You're in grade school and you're learning about the atrocities of the past. And you would have that swell in your gut. You would think, man, if I would have been around back then, if I would have been around during the times of the Holocaust or during the times of chattel slavery, you name it, any of the human rights abuses that we've seen all throughout history, we always assume, because, hopefully we do at least, because we're decent-minded people, we want to do the right thing, we always assume we'd be the good guy, We always assume that we would speak up. We always assume that we would have been the one, raising the red flag and saying, hang on, pump the brakes here real quick. I'm pretty sure that is a violation of God's word. We're living in one such time right now. We are living the opportunity to be the good guy. We are living the opportunity to speak up. And this is a winnable issue. This is a winning issue.
Yeah.
We as the pro-life movement, we have the unique opportunity. We stand at the crossroads between biblical truth, between science and common sense. That's a great place to be. That is a fantastic platform to be working off of. But we need all hands on deck. We need everybody to get in the fight. And no sidelines, no armchair quarterback.
Yeah.
We need all in.
We are just 1 minute before the break, and I've got one other question I just want to run by you here, and next segment we'll go into the phones right away. But President Trump just recently made a comment to Congress about there needing to be more flexible on the Hyde Amendment. This is, that says no taxpayer dollars for abortions. And I'm thankful there seems to be blowback on this, and because the White House appears to be backing down on this issue, and it really is important for individuals to contact their member of Congress, their Senate, to say no compromise on the Hyde Amendment.
Yeah, and that's, Jim, we don't have the time to get into all of it. It's actually a pretty nuanced conversation, but when we see this kind of talk, when we see our elected officials who are not honoring life in the way that we want to see them honor life, it's our duty. It is our duty as Americans that we speak up and we reach out to them and we say, listen, life is not an issue to be compromised on. We cannot, for any reason, we can't be selling out the unborn for some sort of perceived political gain. We can't be, selling the next generation downriver and expect that God's going to bless this country if we won't even protect, the unborn in our own nation. And so, I think it's important we do keep in mind the administration has been very pro-life, but if they slip, we need to let them know. Indeed.
Well, friends, a quick break. We'll come right back to your phone calls on Crosstalk here at 800-733-9829. You're listening to Crosstalk on the VCY American Network. Our guest today, Victor Nieves, the devastating harm of the abortion pill.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brennan House. Our website's worldviewtube.com. Much of the nation is watching in horror the video coming out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, where this Minneapolis church was raided by leftists. They claim they were there protesting ICE, and yet they seem to be being led by Don Lemon, the former CNN employee who I guess now has his own podcast. He confronted the pastor at the front of the church and said that this was legal, constitutional, First Amendment right to protest. Not on private property, it's not. Don Lemon went on to say that, yes, he realizes this could be traumatic for people. Indeed, it is. It's also dangerous. Apparently, there is the thought that one of the pastors of that church is connected to ICE. Regardless, this is a private church service. It's private property. But, my friends, this is the kind of Civil War tactics that I think we're going to increasingly see funded by enemies, foreign and domestic. as the church is now under assault in America.
Taking your calls today here on Crosstalk. We're going to begin right away with, we've got John calling in from Minnesota. Hi, John. You are on the air.
Hi, Victor. The question I have for you, I don't know if you covered this, but is there such a case, is there such a case like in the life of a mother? Is that okay? Is there such a thing as that? Such a thing as that as like if the mother's life is in jeopardy that she can have an abortion.
Okay, thank you, John.
Is there such a...
Thank you. We'll have Victor respond.
Yeah, John, it's a fantastic question. It's one that we get quite often. Our stance is that it should never be the goal of a healthcare provider to intentionally kill a child. Now, unfortunately, the reality of our medical advancement says that there are times, very rare, there are times where it's necessary to save the life of the mother by separating mother and child. Now, the goal is for the child to be treated like a patient always. No matter the circumstance, the child's life should always be protected. Unfortunately, there are times, again, very, very rare, there are times where by separating mother and child, which is necessary to save the life of mother and child, we don't yet have the medical advancements required to save the child. We should give them all palliative care that we possibly can. We should treat the child as a second patient. So that's the difficult reality that unfortunately we do currently live in.
How common is that, Victor?
Go ahead.
How common is that?
Oh, it's exceedingly rare. So we're talking about cases like maybe an ectopic pregnancy. We're dealing with approximately 1% of cases of abortion. Mm-hmm. And that's what's frustrating is a lot of times you hear the abortion industry trying to use these tremendously rare exceptions as a blanket rule for all other cases. Yeah. But saving the life of the mother, I mean, nobody would want both mother and child to die. That's a total tragedy. That's an absolute tragedy. In these cases where it is to save the life of the mother, you do have to separate mother and child. We wouldn't even consider that an abortion. We would consider it a medical tragedy because we just don't yet have the advancements to save both.
The goal is to save both. Thank you, John, from Winona, Minnesota. We've got Greg in Cincinnati, Ohio. You're on the air, Greg.
Yes, sir. Brother Jim and Victor Nieves. I've been doing Walk for Life off and on since 1990. Mm-hmm. And I've done my poem since 1984 called Let Them Live, which I quoted. I had wrote it in Braille. Mm-hmm. I was wondering what I could do to save unborn babies' lives. So I decided to write a poem.
Yeah.
Because they murdered those who are disabled.
Yeah. Well, God bless you, Greg. Thank you for doing what you can to stand for life and being part of Walk for Life. I believe, Victor, tomorrow is March for Life in Washington, D.C. as well.
Yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir. Expecting a lot of people. Pray for him. It's going to be a snowy one from what we hear.
Okay. Thank you, Greg, for the call and for making a difference. Our number 800-733-9829. Let's go to another Greg in Minnesota. You're on the air.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I've worked with a pro-life group in Minnesota, and I know of 2 abortuaries that do just the chemical abortions. But also, and this has been documented, that a couple of at the abortuaries in Minnesota where they've actually had to call the ambulance because there were complications.
Yeah.
And I it's just so sad and evil, and, try to do what I can.
Yeah. Greg, thank you for that. And Victor, comment on this, because I understand that there are several abortion centers that, yes, they have to call an ambulance, but they say, we want to keep this quiet, so no lights, no siren. I mean, they've got a woman that is bleeding, and they're saying, keep this quiet, or come to a back entrance, or do this or do that. Your comment on that issue?
Well, it's a prevalent one, and it's heartbreaking. It happens way more often than people might realize, and there are those who sit outside of these abortuaries, and they document it. They track the cases where this happens, and it's, like you said, it is very strange. They'll have lights off with a woman in the back to not draw attention because they want to hide the truth of what's happening.
Indeed. Let's see. Vivian is next in Peebles, Ohio. You're on the air, Vivian.
Okay, I want to say something to the daddies of these babies. Daddies, now listen, this is just as much your baby as this her baby. So you could take a big part in this. And if you don't want your baby murdered, and you go as quick as you can to that dear little girl or that woman that you got pregnant, it belongs to both of you to take responsibility for that baby. and take this serious. It takes two to tango, as the old saying goes.
Mm-hmm.
So think this over and do the right thing. Save that little baby's life. That baby is innocent, but you two aren't innocent about this.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to kill a baby. Think about that little baby wants to live just like you would.
Yeah. Thank you, Vivian. Great reminder.
God bless y'all.
Thank you. And Victor, again, talk about that responsibility of fatherhood.
Well, it's a big one, and Vivian is 100% right. It takes two to tango, and we need a generation of men to rise up and fulfill their role as men. And yes, that includes if you are a father, and it's not if you're going to be a father. As soon as that child, at the moment of fertilization, when that child is conceived, you, my friend, you are a father. I don't care what else you have going on. You have an obligation to the mother of your child, and you have an obligation to your child to protect and defend that baby's life. And so even if that means, a lot of times men think that the correct answer whenever, whether it's their wife or a girlfriend or something, depending on the circumstance, when a woman comes to him and says, I'm thinking about having an abortion, oftentimes these men think that the correct answer is to say, well, I'll support you no matter what. Mm-hmm. No, that is the wrong answer. The correct answer is to say, I will be a good father. I will be there for you through thick and thin. I will be there for you and for my child. And you would be amazed at the number of women who have changed their mind. They were wanting to have an abortion, but the father of that child took a stand for life and said, no, I will be there with you, and I will be a good dad, and I will be a good husband to you, and we will raise that child. That changes everything.
It does change everything. Victor, we're down to 45 seconds. We don't have time for any further calls. What message would you like to leave with our listeners today?
Well, the message is to continue to fight for life. Jim, like you mentioned at the start of today's program, this is the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, something that many of us, maybe not myself, but many considered impossible. We thought would never actually be able to happen. And as we look forward to all of the fights ahead of us, as we look to completely end abortion in the United States, it can be daunting at times. It can be scary at times. But continue, put your nose to the grindstone, fight for those babies because they deserve it. They are human beings. Fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. I believe it's our biblical duty to do that. We can't sit as a nation and allow this horrible injustice to continue happening. We have an obligation. We have gifts that God has given us. We have abilities that God has given us. We have resources that God has given us. Give those resources to Him. Give back to Him what He has given to you and fight for life.
Indeed, indeed. Victor, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jim. It's always great.
Great. And stay on the line for just a moment, if you would. Friends, the website, lifeissues.org. Lifeissues.org. God bless you, friends. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.